the real author of that constitution is the Parliament of Zimbabwe. It is the one which writes constitutions. Any work of the collective individuals who were part of COPAC was only in a fiduciary role. It was on behalf of Parliament. And ultimately, it was Parliament which took the responsibility of that constitution. And it is Parliament which decided to have a referendum on the passage of that constitution. So this grandstanding by the opposition figures trying to claim they may not answer on behalf of those two institutions which are the point entities for the current drive to amend certain sections of the Constitution. So he may not, he may refrain from answering questions which are not directly related to his illegal position in the party as a lawyer of the party. But we brought him because he was the chairperson of COPAC. Comrade Mangwana, if you can just...
Yes, thank you, Comrade Mutsvangwa.
You can... microphones.
I'm now I'm currently the Secretary for Mines and Energy in ZANU-PF. But it is correct, historically, I co-chaired the constitution-making process and took part in writing this current constitution. A constitution is a living document. It provides for mechanisms for its own amendment. So the most important thing is to check as to whether any proposed amendments are in line with the provisions of that constitution. I've listened to the debate which is going on publicly, and my position is very clear. The proposed amendment to this constitution is in line with the constitution itself. The constitution provides that whenever the people of Zimbabwe, through their parliament, deem it fit to amend the constitution, they can do so. There are only 3 provisions in this constitution which require a referendum for an amendment. The Bill of Rights is one of those provisions. The land provisions cannot be amended without a referendum. Any other provision of this constitution can be amended through a 2/3 majority of Parliament. And we were very clear when we wrote this constitution to say which areas do we want protected from amendment by Parliament. So when a law specifies areas which are preserved for amendment, it means that any other parts of the Constitution which have not been protected can be amended by Parliament using 2/3 majority. And from my reading, the proposed amendments do not require a referendum. And I must emphasize, these proposed amendments do not require a referendum. The Constitution is very clear. I thought I should just make that very clear from the outset.
Oh, okay. I think you have heard it for yourself, because there is a clamor from the usual detractors of ZANU-PF who wants to say that we are abrogating certain sections of the Constitution. It's not true. And there are some even who are trying to take an issue with the extension of the presidential term limit. There are several countries in the world.
Let me also make it clear that the amendments is, a term limit is a period of more than 3 years. And the proposed amendment extends or increases by another 2 years. It does not fall foul of the provisions of this Constitution. If you want to amend for 3 years, that's when you require a referendum. If it's an amendment by a period of 2 years, you are not putting in a new term, so to say. This is why we specifically made that provision in this constitution. So in other words, if you are extending by a period which is less than 3 years, you have not increased by another term. The constitution says so in very clear terms. I thought I should clear that.
I think, well, he has taken the words out of my mouth. I just want to say on the global stage, the issue of term limits for president varies country by country. Some are 5 years, but others like Italy, 7 years, because they feel that the president needs to be given enough time to carry out the mandate which he may have got from the electorate, so that he can have sufficient time to execute all the policies and deliver on the programs of the president. I've just mentioned Italy, for example. I think, also there are other countries without term limits. Angela Merkel in Germany, she ruled ad infinitum for ages because the Germans liked her. So let's not make it like there is sacrosanct canons about certain term limits which are coming from somewhere other from the gods. No. Constitutions, as he has indicated, they are live documents. They are subject to the wishes of the people at a certain stage of the development of their country. People cannot be manacled to a constitution. It's not the purpose of a constitution to manacle the electorate or the people of a certain country. If they feel that certain amendments can be made, so be it. And that's what exactly ZANU-PF is doing. I emphasize once again, there's complete gratification about the work of President E.D. Mnangagwa and his Second Republic. He has hardly been in power for 6 years, hardly. But this country has changed completely changed in those 6 years. He's a man who has put his shoulders to the wheel and is making sure that Zimbabwe progresses. So there's general satisfaction about the worksheet of the president. There is. And the people of Zimbabwe are saying, the man is doing a good job. Let's have more of him. Let him be given a chance. He's alert. You saw him in Dubai answering questions at a global stage. Yeah, the answers just came like that, contrary to those who were trying to purvey the false narrative of creeping senility or other healthy issues. This is not the truth about the president. He's alert. He answers. He chairs his cabinet. It's a long cabinet from 9 usually to 4:30. And I was in cabinet. He's a disciplined man. He can spend the whole day just on his chair, following arguments, and then summarizing and making the right decisions about where Zimbabwe is going. Similarly, he chairs the Politburo from 10 to 4 o'clock, or sometimes even into the evening, answering questions, giving everybody room to debate on issues, and then he himself reserving his right to make a final ruling. Regionally, our president is well respected. Every one of the regional leaders, they defer to him, they seek his counsel. Why? Because he's an old horse. He is the repository of the most ardent institutional memory about how the region has traveled since the African nationalism of Southern Africa took a militant stand against colonialism racism, and apartheid. He's among the early recruits who have survived from that era in the 60s when there was a qualitative jump from the nationalist struggle to the revolutionary struggle. He has been there. He has experienced jail. He has, first he experienced political organization as a young man. He then went into exile. He was among the first people. In fact, he was the first to be trained by the People's Liberation Army of China when our army, when the nascent stages of the crucible of our national liberation movement, the military side. He came back, spent years in jail like fellow nationalists, but his jail was more, he was seen as a terrorist because he had been captured as part of the early infiltration into Zimbabwe. He did his studies. Afterwards, he spent hardly 2 years in Zambia to complete his law degree. And when the war resumed in earnest in Mozambique, he didn't flinch about rejoining the struggle again. Sometimes people say once beaten, twice shy. He didn't flinch. He went back to the war, and he became the chief interface of the President Mugabe, of the Politburo, with high command. He would cover from the Zambezi to the Limpopo, collecting reports, collating reports about how the war was being executed. Remember, ZANU forces, Zebra forces are the only African liberation movement which has fought a modern war against the British and won. Our Boer and the Boer farmers from South Africa, the Afrikaners, they tried it in the 1900s. They were defeated by the British, the famous Redcoats from Britain. They came and defeated the Afrikaners. Zimbabwe is a different story. Zimbabwe fought and won against the foremost imperial power of the time. But not only did he help prosecute the armed struggle in the manner I've just described, giving advice, supplying weapons, engaging in diplomatic work as part of the delegation of the president, as part of the, he was then special advisor to President Mnangagwa. So President Mugabe at that time, he was then special advisor to President Mugabe at that particular time. So he saw all aspects of that struggle. He came back. He was among the first to land in Harare, to administer the ceasefire which had been agreed in Lancaster House, of which he was also the legal advisor and the tactical advisor and the strategic advisor to the Patriotic Front team in Lancaster House, where the armistice was negotiated. He was active. He came to apply the ceasefire agreement on the ground, and he led the party election win in 1980, the resounding win. And soon after, he assumed the task of integrating the former armies, the three of them, ZANU, ZIPRA, and the Rhodesian, the remnants of the Rhodesian army. Then he became the Minister of National Security of the First Republic. The security system of Zimbabwe is one of the most respected on the African continent. And the AU makes recourse to the Zimbabwean security system for advice, even when we were setting up the Security Council of the African Union. The first time we had that institution, Zimbabwe was invited to lead Africa in the formation of the Security Council. This is our African peer brothers, sisters, bound to the record of capability which Zimbabwe has shown in this domain. It's not easy to fight a liberation war. It's not easy to consolidate independence. It's not easy to stand foursquare with SWAPO, with ANC, to their respective victories in 1989 for SWAPO. And for your own information, he was the one who was the chief advisor of SWAPO before it went back to Namibia for the transition to independence. I remember I was then a diplomat seconded from New York to Namibia. It's a difficult situation when the South Africans were trying to ditch United Nations resolutions. I was posted in Namibia for that transition period. I was called back by him to come and give briefings to President Sam Nujoma, to ex-President Agegen Gop, and the whole SWAPO team. We did it at the Holiday Inn, a seminar, before prepping them before they could leave for Windhoek for the first time for the elections. Comrade Mnangagwa was the one who was in charge of that debriefing about SWAPO. He has got bonds with the ANC leadership across the board, because when we became independent, we decided that in one way or the other we will support the ANC in its armed liberation struggle against South Africa. And there were attempts a couple of years ago at an event in Durban. One of the rogue elements from ZANU-PF, who is based in South Africa, he wanted to besmirch the role of President Mnangagwa. And none other than President Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, went to that meeting to put the record straight that when they were being hosted in Zimbabwe, the point person of President E.G. Mnangagwa to Oliver Tambo, the leader of the ANC in exile, was none other than President E.D. Mnangagwa. And he is the one who was supervising the armed struggle, helping supervise the armed struggle of the ANC. You know, people also remember that we fought in Mozambique in defense of Frelimo against Renamo, against apartheid South Africa. It was again President Mnangagwa who was tasked with that assignment by the former president of the Republic, Comrade Mugabe. And when peace talks were held, he spent almost 8 to 9 months at Sant'Egidio in Rome, brokering peace between Frelimo and Renamo, leading to the laying down of arms by Renamo and its integration into the body politic, body military of Mozambique. Equally, the same president, Mnangagwa, who is in charge of Zimbabwe today, was the one in charge of our efforts which restored the integrity, the territorial integrity of the DRC Congo. You know, Rwanda had tried to blindside Southern Africa and establish its own dictatorship in Kinshasa. Congo is an important country. It's the largest of the African countries, one of the largest. Yeah, it is at the heart of Africa. It has got so much capability because when all the other African nations or tribes were being dismembered at the behest of the 1884 Berlin Conference, America stood on the side of Belgian Congo, that cruel ruler, Leopold of Belgium. But it did one thing which was good at that time, which was to have a bigger African country. For the America, they said big is good. That's why Congo, as the Congo Free State, was not dismembered in the way other African countries were cut, masticated into pieces. So this is an important African country, the Congo River, the second largest in the world, but also probably the most powerful all around in terms of capacity to generate electricity. It is a harbinger for the prospect of Africa probably become the headquarters of all the data centers, of most of the data centers in artificial intelligence, because that river is powerful. It receives water from 2 seasons because it crosses the equator, unlike the Amazon. So we were very much aware that you cannot have a puppet regime in Kinshasa, and we intervened. And the man who was the appointment of that intervention by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, an epic intervention, where only 800 to 900 commanders of Zimbabwe army, of the ZANU-PF, they defeated a 10,000 strong army of Rwandans and Uganda. This is the epic achievements of Zimbabwe on the African stage. And at each and every stage, there's one man who is standing out to make sure that these epic victories of Africa can be delivered upon or can be attained. And it's none other than President E.D. Mnangagwa. That's why all his neighbors, they defer to him. I repeat, he has the most institutional memory about this long period which Southern Africa has traversed. And now, of course, we are looking at the economic integration of the region. He has broken into new territory. I mean, it's not easy to have a steel plant in sub-Saharan Africa, a modern steel plant in sub-Saharan, and Zimbabwe is the only one which has got one. The other one is a remnant of the apartheid era in South Africa. It has closed. But Zimbabwe has started new territory in beneficiation. This was the clamor of the detractors. Hey, we want our minerals beneficiated in Zimbabwe. There it is. Zimbabwe has delivered. President E.D. Mnangagwa has delivered. It's also an accolade that he has invited 4 out of probably 6 of the top lithium companies in the world to come to Zimbabwe. Now we have a lithium industry which actually shakes the global market. If Zimbabwe says something about lithium, the global markets respond. We are not pushing out to the sea hard rock lithium. We are processing it here, and now we've even gone further to the lithium sulfate, which is battery grade lithium. And with the new laws or the new regulations about exports, it will make sure that those companies which have established plants within Zimbabwe are not out-competed by their peers back home in China, who will be getting Zimbabwean rock, processing it into lithium, at the expense of the same Chinese peers who are already resident in the country and they put their money. So we are doing our best to make sure that they become more profitable by undercutting their competition who have refineries in China instead of refineries in Zimbabwe. This is what we are doing. That's what this law is meant to be, and we believe that we will find a way between Zimbabwe and China of developing a healthy path for the processing of lithium all the way to lithium-ion batteries. These are the batteries which power these phones. The lithium is inside. This is the same battery which is powering electric vehicles in the world. And Zimbabwe is so endowed that 25% of the world hard rock lithium is in Zimbabwe. But President Mnangagwa is not only looking at that, he's looking at the perimeter proximity of all the minerals which are called the transition minerals. That's lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, graphite, this I've mentioned. But that group of minerals are now called transition minerals. These are the minerals at the heart of the competition between Europe and China, between America, China, and Europe, these minerals. And he is now engaged in diplomacy with the Americans. Okay. Yes. Okay, that's okay. maybe, you know, Africa will, for the first time, realize value out of its endowment of minerals, because we have become conscious about our role on the global stage, the footprint of Africa in these transition minerals. And President Mnangagwa is actually the leader in terms of the beneficiation of these minerals for the benefit of Africa. I don't want to perhaps waylay you too much. I'm still having a few announcements, but I would also want at this stage, because Comrade Mangwana has got other assignment, I'm told. If you've got any queries which you may wonder with on him about the first matter. But remember, I want to emphasize the assignment of the new constitution is being done, spearheaded by Parliament and by the government, the executive wing of government. We as the party, we only offer guidelines. It's not exactly our baby. It is, we chart the policy aspects. Like this is fulfillment of the resolutions about President Mnangagwa being in charge until 2030. That's what the party said. The execution of that aspect does not belong to the party. It belongs to government. It belongs to Parliament.